Coming up on the Uplift, a city right here in Minnesota is named one of the best for families. Which metro suburb made the cut? Then, changing the world one changing table at a time. The huge step forward Minnesota is taking thanks to some inspiring advocates. And support for families who have experienced the unthinkable. Meet the family letting us all in on their journey towards healing. Welcome to the Uplift. In this digital series, we're going to be sharing some of our favorite stories we hope will put a smile on your face. It's our goal to lift your spirits for at least the next 30 minutes and hopefully for a lot longer. I'm Susan Elizabeth Littlefield. Thank you so much for being with us. A local nonprofit will be able to help feed more hungry people because of state funding. Minnesota lawmakers provided $6.6 million in recent budget for Second Harvest Heartland over the next 2 years. It's to support Kitchen Coalition, a partnership with restaurants and nonprofits serving meals to those who don't qualify for other state or federal programs. The program covers a variety of cultural foods, from soul food to Mexican to halal.
We say it's meals made with care, and you get that when it's neighbors making meals for their neighbors, right? You know the people who are getting the food, you hear the feedback, and it's that constant iteration that makes these delicious meals.
The Kitchen Coalition has been around since 2020, delivering 25,000 freshly prepared meals a week. The new funding will help expand the service beyond the Twin Cities. A Twin Cities suburb is proud to have the ranking of one of America's best cities for families. Fortune magazine just named Eagan as the 11th best place for families to call home. The magazine ranked the top 50 cities. Eagan nearly cracked the top 10 for having plenty of amenities and activities along with lots of green space. It's also close to major attractions like the Mall of America and the Minnesota Zoo. The magazine also credited the city's low crime rate and good schools. We have an update now on a story we've been working on for a year and a half. It pertains to something many of us take for granted, the basic human function of using the restroom. As we have been reporting, Minnesotans say that using public restrooms can be dehumanizing as they are forced to lay on the floor, but that is about to change. Take a look. Heart to heart, hand in hand, these are victors, and it's a done deal.
Yeah, we did it.
And I was thinking about all the millions of people that have to be changed on the floor. I just thought about, we did it. We did it.
Yes, they did. Adult changing tables are now law in new public spaces that are built in Minnesota. For Linda Hood, a marathoner who lost use of her legs from a virus, she declared this her mission last year as Miss Wheelchair Minnesota.
We met at a hearing.
For Sarah St. Louis of Excelsior, she was struggling to change her beloved son Ezra, who has a traumatic brain injury and was too big for those infant tables.
And so the only places we had to change him were a dirty public restroom floor. I realized that this is really undignified. It's not sanitary, it's not safe, and it's humiliating to put your child on a dirty bathroom floor.
So 4 years ago, she took on the monumental task of changing state law with the help of advocates like Linda, who don't give up.
We got Senator Liz Bolden and Representative Kim Hicks to be respective authors. They spent about 15 hours over 2 days. And they finally voted 34 to 33 to pass it on. Just before midnight, they passed it. And then we got Governor Walz to sign it last week.
Who's it feel like inside?
It makes tears flow. It just makes tears flow.
When I got home, I showed my son, and he was just like, he signed it? And I was like, yes, baby, he did. He goes, we just changed the world. It just made me realize that we did something that meant something. We brought human dignity to Minnesota, finally.
So you guys are going to keep going?
Yes,
This is just the beginning.
The beginning.
We know the cost of gunfire is having a real impact on people across Minnesota. Losing someone you love in that way leaves a pain that can be hard to process. That's where groups like Survivor Resources come in. The nonprofit was formed to support families who have experienced this kind of pain. Our Jennifer Mayerly shares one family's journey through the grief and the support they have found to help heal.
He was very young.
Reflecting.
You can see him as a child fanning a reindeer.
Love reindeers.
On moments with their son.
And here's a picture of him and his mother outside of this building in Germany.
That still bring them joy.
Finally got a job as a paramedic with the St. Paul Fire Department, and he was so proud of that.
John and Sandy Harrigan's son Tom was off duty when he was shot and killed inside his East Side home in September of 2019.
My world ended. I temporarily lost my faith in God. So I spent months trying to understand what did I do wrong?
The firefighter and decorated veteran who served in Iraq and Afghanistan as a combat medic was 36 years old.
At this moment, emotionally, you've been run over by a bus. And everything in your life without a killer, your ability to function is falling apart.
And yet they say, while people mean well, those around them couldn't understand their pain.
Very sadly, most people want to jump us through, you got 2 weeks to grieve.
So they leaned on each other and soon found a place where people truly understood how they were feeling. Survivor Resources is a nonprofit dedicated to helping people process their grief together.
5 new people showed up.
Everyone in their weekly support group had lost someone they love to homicide.
But I don't know how I would have survived without Survivor Resources, because I'm telling the honest to God's truth, but I felt abandoned. And the people in the group, I'm not alone.
Just being able to go there every night and have people to talk to who've been through the same thing is a blessing.
The nonprofit started nearly 30 years ago at the request of the former head of homicide for St. Paul Police. He saw the despair from families of homicide victims and the need for resources. It's now grown to help others, too.
We provide resources for people who have lost loved ones to homicide, as well as a couple other things, suicide, accidental death, and overdose.
Tony Plant is one of 3 staff members. She sets up the rooms where support groups meet and facilitates meetings.
The facilitator is there to kind of keep people moving, so you want to give everybody a chance to talk, at least to some extent.
It's a space for people to say whatever they're feeling without the worry of being judged.
A lot of crying, usually, generally speaking. We have people that have lost people 10 years ago that still come back because they're looking for closure. And then we have people that have lost somebody last week.
People are helping each other, kind of.
Oh, exactly. That's what the beauty of a support group.
The need for this kind of group became even more apparent during the pandemic. As they went virtual, they started getting calls from across the country.
People will call in from other states and say, I can't find anything. I can't even find a group, not to mention one that's free.
Now back in person, they still make room for people to Zoom in, knowing grieving happens in its own way, on its own time.
It becomes a part of you. But learning to live with that is the part that we try to add to the equation.
They made this little plaque here in honor of Thomas Harrigan.
After 3 years of going to weekly meetings,
Years of service, 2013 to 2019.
the Harrigans know their grief has changed.
It's not the same. You're not anguishing it over 24 hours a day, every day, but it's there in the back of your mind. And there are certain triggers. I want to scream, or I want to weep, or both. And then it passes.
But it will always live inside them.
The hardest part now is I very much want to go on with my life, but I don't want to leave my son behind.
Jennifer Mayerly, WCCO News.
The ride through life just got a whole lot smoother for one Minnesota man. Up next, how a Vikings quarterback helped change his life.